Welcome back. It is June something or other. I've lost complete track, Preston, in this era of COVID of where we're sitting. But it's a real honor to have you here on Catalyst Talks to talk about innovation and the work you're doing. So before we jump into that, how are you doing personally? How's the family, and how are you getting along?
Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on here. Great question. I'm doing wonderful. Family's doing great. Everybody's healthy. We're rocking and rolling. And of course, with these unprecedented times, the last several weeks have been emotionally challenging, but at the same time, they've really, gotten me even more emboldened to do the work that we do. So I'm in a really good place. So thank you for asking.
Well, wonderful. Let's jump right into that. The whole point of Catalyst Talks is for me to interview innovators, thought leaders, strategists who are trying to figure out the future of work, where we go from here, all the different parts of society and how they interact from a private sector and public sector standpoint. And there are a few examples I can think of more than you and DivInc and the work that you're doing. So, we'll get into your backstory in a minute, but just while we've got viewers, let's jump right into DivInc, your mission, what you're trying to accomplish. And while you're doing that, I'll pull up the website.
I'm sorry, Joe, you kind of broke up on that last part. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm going to bring up the website. So just kind of go into DivInc and the origin story behind it and how you got to now.
Okay.
Keep going. Sorry. I dropped your screen share, but I'm gonna pull it up again right now. We're talking about DivInc.
Okay, here we go.
So tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah. So what we have here is basically why DivInc essentially, DivInc was started to address major issues associated with the lack of diversity and inclusion in the startup ecosystem. And so DivInc was started to basically to build a more authentically inclusive ecosystem in any startup community that we address. And so that started with a accelerator program specifically for underrepresented founders. And here, what you see is one of our founders, Kim Roxy, and she's the founder of Lamique, which was a organic, plant-based cosmetic products specifically for women of color. And she's still rocking and rolling. She's doing her thing. She's based out of Houston, and she's doing some amazing stuff with her product and her company. We also had another gentleman that was highlighted. See, I don't know if it was on this page or not, but yeah. So we have several stories. There he is, Roman Gonzalez. He is the founder of Gardenia, which is a solution for folks to build their gardens successfully at their homes. And he's addressing the challenge of so many people try to start gardens and so many fail. And so he is really increasing the opportunities for people to build successful gardens, eat better, eat healthier, and really do better by their communities by creating sustainable communities in the process. So cool stuff that we're doing, and we've got 55 others that we've helped launch over the last 4 years. So we've had some fun, and we've worked really hard to do that.
So for purpose of background, for people that aren't in the startup community, I mean, these will be my words and you expand on it however you want. But in my early experiences, going back nearly 10 years ago, all the events I went to, the conferences I went to, most of the CEOs, most of the founders were principally white dudes, and they were young white dudes. The money we were going after was basically venture firms and angels that were almost 80 to 90% white based. So how much of this is just leveling the playing field, and how much of this is just introducing more of the entrepreneurial ecosystem to the access to where the money is.
Oh, it's all about that, right? We in order to level that playing field, we've got to bring more people in, people of color, women, folks from different perspectives, different backgrounds, and create those opportunities. Essentially, our networks were intertwined, right? And so now by bringing folks together, we're able to successfully broaden and build broader and more diverse and inclusive networks. And as a result, as you know, Joe, diversity helps breed greater innovation. And so I think overall, Austin's startup ecosystem, or any ecosystem that embraces the diversity and the equity of it, actually gets even better as a result of this engagement. So yes, and it's not just founders, as you mentioned, Joe. I mean, it is also bringing in investors and of color, investors who are women. It's also bringing more mentors in, right? You have you got some large corporations here that have amazing, talented executives. And how do we bring more of those into the fold, right? More mentors, investors, founders, and really spurring this innovative mindset and growth within the community across the board. So really excited to see the transformation that's happening in Austin, slowly but surely, and I expect even greater things to happen in the coming years.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I think the key is we're talking about diversity and inclusion and the long-term value. What I'm hearing is that if folks, especially investors, recognize the fact that if they have more people at the table, they're more likely to get a return on investment long term when they have all different new ways of thinking about stuff, all new different problem sets are going after, all new target audiences. And how much of that are you doing in your cohorts, or is your cohorts of companies just trying to basically focus on the basics of fundamentals of tackling and blocking and just getting out there and getting their product out?
I mean, we don't have a choice but to do a combination of both, right? And so there is that early stage, getting out there, blocking, tackling, learning it, but at the same time understanding, the long-term potential impact. So we're building that pipeline as we move forward. And also, what I want to add to the points that you made, it is building that innovative economy, but also you look at it long term as well. You're talking about greater job creation, right? And the more diverse job creation, right? Because women tend to hire more women, and people of color have a network to hire more people of color. Not to exclude, white people at all, but it's just
Right.
more inclusive in terms of your hiring pool. The other piece that a lot of people don't realize is that as a result of this job creation, the socioeconomic benefits to a community as a result of that happening are tremendous, right? You have people making more money, you have jobs being created, and then as they're having success and they experience exits, wow, now we're creating wealth, right? And that wealth, again, has a tremendous impact, not just on that founder and that founder's immediate family, but it permeates through the community, and you create this domino effect in terms of the mindset shift that entrepreneurship, this innovative space is for me. And so as you see more people that look like you that are in this space, then you yourself want to participate in that as well. So the long-term impact is not just with the customers and the revenues, but it's also on the community level, wealth gap level, job creation level, and then also a mindset shift as well.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to check time. So we're at 9.5 minutes already. We're going to put this first 10 minutes on LinkedIn, but I want to
Of course we are.
but I want to spend a few more minutes talking about a few different points. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, this is going to be the end of the first part of the interview. And feel free to go over to YouTube and or Facebook, Gray Line Group, or my Joseph Kopser Facebook, and you can find the rest of this interview. So let's pick up 2 points here, Preston, which is very specifically, one is from the past, and one is a new movie that came out with highlights. So the one from the past is the story from Walter Isaacson's book, The Innovators. And in that book, they had this idea, the Palo Alto Research Labs at Xerox, to take the document that used to be paper on a desk, put it on an upright screen, give it a keyboard, and then basically they created the first desktop computer. And as the story goes, they brought this to the board meeting, which, mind you, at the time was all a bunch of old white dudes. And they put this computer in the middle of the room and said, this is the future of the office. And the guy is told by Walter Isaacson, the guy scratched his head and said, now, why would I want that on my desk when I have a perfectly good secretary in the front office to do the typing for me? And,
Right.
And that to me is a glaring example from history. And there's another example from history, which is anybody that's got Apple TV Plus can go and watch this movie called The Banker, which lays out so beautifully in the movie. Samuel L. Jackson executive produced, directed, and starred in the movie about how when you systemically deny for decades access to wealth, access to capital, access to loans, even if you're not even doing the terrible, obvious stuff like the Jim Crow laws and redlining, but just simply denying them access to loans, that in and of itself prevents us from creating this ecosystem and this ability to create wealth. And this is part of what you're doing at DivInc to try to overcome this, to build a bigger bench. Elaborate, if you would, on any part of those points, or push back and tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah, I think, and I'll start with the second one. What a lot of people do not know when they ask, why aren't there more, people of color, maybe blacks, maybe Hispanics in particular, in this startup space? And research had showed that the one of the roadblocks was the fact that high growth startups requires capital, right? And some of the, especially in the technology side, right?
Yep.
There's capital that's required. And so if you're having a difficult time getting access to capital, but yet you are an entrepreneur, you have to sort of venture automatically into the side where it's a less cost business, right? And which tends to be more lifestyle, small business type. And so it's not that, black folks, or Hispanics can't do high growth. It's the access to capital is a sort of a restraining piece to going in. Now, the other side of that research also says, well, by being over here in this lifestyle side of the entrepreneur spectrum, it's also companies or industries that are generating less revenue.
Yep.
And so it's sort of like a dual, a double-edged sword here. It's like, damn, I can't get into the high growth space. I can't get access to capital. And then when I do go start a business, it's low revenue generating, low margin generating. So I'm sort of stuck, right? And so,
yeah, because angel and VCs want to see that 8 to 10x return, and it's hard to do with small businesses.
Exactly. And so, how do we remove those barriers? We gotta, first of all, we gotta understand that that's happening, and secondly, how do we remove those barriers to open up the floodgates to allow those folks who have the potential to do high growth, technology, innovative startups, right? I won't even say tech. I'm just going to say innovative startups. We've got to be able to open up the floodgates, for them. And then the other piece that you talked about was, the innovative aspect. Man, I'm telling you, I come across people all the time with some really amazing ideas, right? And something as simple like, hey, here's this thing here that's going to replace, your secretary or your typewriter. Let's just say typewriter, right? Because I had a typewriter going into college. And so if you told me I was going to have a computer, I'm like, I'm sticking with this, 40 words per second over here, right? 40 words per second. Sorry. And so these innovative ideas can come from anywhere, right? I mean, they can come from anywhere, any zip code, any person. The question is, how do we really enable and empower that creativity and that innovation to come out from any mind and really say go, right? And we want to be able to inspire that through DivInc, all the way down to middle school and as far down as we can. We want to provide that inspiration as well as to adults who are out there like me, right? I left Dell in mid-career, if you will, some would say,
Yep.
and went to go start something. If that inspiration hits people, we should be able to give them the tools and the resources to allow them to be successful. And let some other factor be a result of why it doesn't happen, but not the color of their skin and not their gender. Don't let that be the thing that holds them back.
Yeah. Well, I've said for years, people will be what they can see. And if you have now the opportunity with DivInc to create a whole new cohort, a bench that not only they themselves will do great things with their companies, hopefully, but they will serve as a role model. They will serve as an inspiration for others that are either younger to them in the pipeline, or they might be in other companies and other sectors that look over and see what they're doing. So for people that want to get involved with DivInc and what you're doing in any capacity, how do they do it and where do they go?
Yeah, I mean, I catch the last part because we froze, but I can use my own case. I mean, I've got 4 children, and my 16-year-old daughter probably never thought about entrepreneurship until I started DivInc, right? And now for her to come to me and say, Dad, can I take over DivInc when you're done?
That's
I thought
all.
you can come take it over right now, baby.
That's
You know
all.
what I mean? And you know, that's something that a lot of families are not able to get. And so for her to be inspired that way, and she's saying she's going to school to study business and entrepreneurship. We'll see if she sticks with that. But I think that's the inspiration that we want to provide. That's the mindset that we want to provide. Is that you too can do this if you want to, right? If you want to, and that's the whole thing. If you want to, you should be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I couldn't have asked for a better guest today with all the things that are going on. I encourage people to follow you on LinkedIn. You've done a lot of great things recently, especially since the tragedy of George Floyd, to really point out the people, especially those who might have thought, well, this doesn't have an impact on me, or why would they want to go and do this? You're doing a great job of curating material, probably more than we have to go in here because we're almost at 20 minutes already. That really helps open people's eyes. And for me personally, I've recommended to friends that movie, The Banker, which I referred to. And then also just recently we watched Just Mercy, the story of Brian Stevenson. I think it's important for people to really be aware of the fact that even though they may not understand, they have an obligation to try to do a little homework to figure it out. So maybe some of this, this outrage and this frustration can be better understood and better channeled.
So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm, in real simple terms, I mean, I grew up in New York City, very diverse community. So I know it exists, right? And I know it can be done. And I feel like my role in this is to, just like others, is I need to be an educator as well as, someone who's learning. I need to understand what the other side is thinking, why they're thinking the way they're thinking, and help them understand, the pain, not just that myself and my friends and my family, but the history of my family, my father, my grandfather, what we've been through as a people.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Share that in a way that's not mean spirited.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my dad
Yeah,
said it on Facebook the other day. I'm sorry to step on you there with the delay, but my dad said it very well on Facebook the other day that growing up in Lexington, Kentucky, he was unaware that Lexington was one of the cities that were a part of the Woolworth boycott. In fact, it was my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Audrey Grievous, who were at those lunch counters demanding to be served. And the reason why Dad didn't know about all that going on is that the owner of the newspaper at the time refused to print it. And there's a whole part of education there. And you're part of this latest generation, making sure that the word gets out, doing it in a way that hopefully people respond to. And for that, Preston, I am honored to have had you on today's Catalyst Talks, and I look forward to seeing you out and about when we're able to get back out again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Preston. Take care.
All right. Take care.